folks. Scott Rogan here, Rogue Home Cinema, joined by Gary. And
Hello.
I was going to say welcome, but really I'm welcomed today.
You are, yeah. Welcome to my home theatre.
Yeah, so we're here in Gary's Sci-Fi Cinema in Redcliffe, WA. We've been doing some really cool things this year, spicing up a cinema room which actually has been around for a little while, and there's some really amazing history and even decor and beautiful sci-fi cinema components in this room which make it a real standout. So Gary, thanks for having us here today.
No problem.
Mate, so it's been a journey for you. We've done some cool things today which we're going to look into, and some of the technology behind it we'll dive into in a little bit. But before we get there, how did this start? What made you actually get into cinema? What movie kind of triggered you into this sort of scene?
If you're going to think about a movie that made the biggest impression on my life, is probably Star Wars.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, as I was a little kid then. And I think what I always was trying to recreate is the feeling I had when the opening scene of Star Wars, the big ship comes over the top. And I suppose I was just mesmerised by the idea of movies and how it can transport you into a totally different world. And when I sort of got to an age where I was earning my own money and had my own place, I started to delve into a bit of hi-fi.
Yeah, so stereo.
Yeah, stereo hi-fi. And then slowly thought about, once I got my hi-fi components, increase it to bring into the screen as well. So I had a decent size CRT screen, which was a 16 by 9. Yeah,
16 9.
Yeah,
Okay.
it
What
cost
year
a
was
fortune.
that?
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez. That was
90s?
yeah, late 80s, early 90s.
Whoa,
I think. So,
widescreen in late 80s.
Yeah, it was quite expensive.
Yeah.
But then sort of progressed even further, and then went to a projector, and
Wow.
that was the best step I made towards recreating the way I
Getting
felt
a big
as a
screen.
kid going into a movie to watch something like the Star Wars opening sequence. And so it's progressed from there. And over the years, obviously, with technology changes from Dolby Surround down to Dolby Digital, DTS, then DTS, sort of Surround 7.1.
Extra channels.
Yeah, all that. You're constantly updating, and I think that's one of the things you've got to keep abreast with the technology.
Yeah.
And then, of course, gone through VHS through to DVD.
Did you get Laserdisc?
A Laserdisc, yes.
Laserdisc?
That's in the cupboard. I've got a Laserdisc player with all the Laserdiscs as well.
You got to hang on to it, right?
Yeah, I've been thinking about selling them, but no, nostalgia. Keep them for a while. And yeah, I used to go out collecting the big Laserdisc box sets and things like that. But then eventually, sort of, obviously the format's getting smaller and better. So going to Blu-ray and now Ultra HD.
So which of the shows? So obviously Star Wars is the one that really kind of, which for most of us it was like, I mean, it was epic, right?
It was, yeah.
I'd never seen anything like that before. Obviously, I'm more of an 80s baby, so there was a number of options, a few more options for me. So Alien's actually a big one, and I know you've got the Alien sci-fi features here. But Star Wars is still that sort of classic. So, and you're talking about the media technology. So, how many times have you purchased Star Wars between VHS and Laserdisc and DVD? And
I think
Is it on
Lucasfilm
every
have done very
format?
well out of me.
Yeah.
I've got I had VHS, I had the Laserdisc, but then I also got the definitive Laserdisc box set edition as well. DVDs and now Blu-rays. So it's just progress. It does feel a bit that you're spending money on the same thing. But if it's
more rewarding though,
yeah,
right? You get closer and closer to what Lucas would have had in that studio which is what we're always chasing.
Yeah.
So.
And I think if you compare it now, like look at the Ultra HD. And even Blu-ray, and compare it to sort of just a VHS quality. It's no comparison really. So
I think I had a client not long ago. He has all his legacy gear still connected, which takes quite the system to plug all that stuff in. and he showed his niece. He goes, "Oh, I'll show you Laserdisc," and he pops it on. And they lasted about 5 minutes. He's like, "Right, let's go to JB and get the Blu-ray." So you got to step it up to get spoiled, I guess, as the technology gets up.
I mean, look, I've got all those old machines, but as far as I'm concerned, as long as you've got your players to play the best media possible, I mean, you're looking for quality and you're looking for detail, and when you're doing a home theatre, you don't just want the best sound, but you want to try and get the best picture as well. So you want the picture quality.
Certainly, what comes in is what comes out, and I guess we've been chasing since really the 70s, 80s. We've been chasing that commercial studio, that film-like quality. So of course, commercial cinemas had film, which was amazing, with high-pressure lamps and big sound systems, and it's only been really the last few years that Ultra HD's come out on Blu-ray, and that gives us the same picture as digital cinema. We've got studio quality sound, and therefore we're no longer kind of trying anymore to be as good as cinema. Instead, it's almost, would you say it's better now?
I think it is. I must say that going to the theatre is still a great experience. I mean, there's nothing like going into an auditorium and, big room, lots of people in it.
Spill the popcorn.
Roll Jaffas down the aisle, all that sort of stuff. But there are times when you come into this sort of room and you know you're going to get just as good a sound quality and without the hassles of going out. And one thing I like to do is I like to get transported into a movie and the storyline, and I think one of those things where you go to a theatre, you go and enjoy the atmosphere, but it has the negatives as well, because you have to deal with the people in front of you or behind you kicking your chair or whatever.
Even phones these days,
going
my
off,
God, that's not good.
But I mean, that is still a good experience if you sort of choose the right movie and avoid where the little kids are running around crazy.
You can get the more hardcore movies. I know when the new big sci-fi movies come out, then that's when I'll get to the cinema as well. It's one of those things, and then of course it only takes about 2-3 months now to get them on Blu-ray, so it's a pretty quick release. So
they come out pretty quick, don't
they? Yeah. But then these other times where sometimes I'm like, I'm going to save that for the home system because I know I'm actually going to enjoy it more at home. So
that was one of the downsides years ago, was when you actually would see a movie at the theatre and then it would be like more than 6 months before it came out. And of course then there was quite a difference in the US market, and I think that was why I got into Laserdisc, was it allowed me to get movies prior to when they came out here on VHS tape or DVD. So it was one of these things where trying to access movies as quickly as possible when they came out of the theatre,
So that's one of the big game changers, the access and the content, and now the Apple TV is an Ultra HD and it's going to run Dolby Atmos. So the media changes, looks like that's come to the end with streaming, so it's really quite a special time for cinema.
Streaming's coming really good too. Quality is just awesome, considering it's coming down a wire. So
we
awesome
get
stuff.
it all. Awesome. Well, thanks, Gary, for sharing that first step, and we'll check in again after the next break. Hey guys, so Scott here again. I've been welcomed by Gary into the Sci-Fi cinema. We've done a little bit of work on this just recently. It's really got the room to a whole new level, which is super exciting. So we thought we'd really share the journey that's actually got you here. It hasn't been a snap decision like that.
It's been a long journey. In fact, I remember in my early 20s when I moved out of home, the first thing I did was buy a stereo, and I think that was one of the first things I did. Sort of went out and I sort of bought a Yamaha amplifier, and it just had a little button on the front that just said Dolby, and that was it. And,
wow, cool.
It really didn't do very much except amplify the sound. But that was the first thing I got into, was audio, and then progress from there.
So so there's obviously been some wins, there've been challenges along the way. So what have been sort of the progression, like what have been the milestones where you've gone, wow, we've really taken it another level now, and what were the sort of some of the steps we like, okay, what have we got to do to actually enhance this experience even more? So obviously sound is the first one that got you in, and then I think you moved towards the widescreen TV. That was the next
Yeah,
big
it was
one.
a widescreen TV, but then when I went to a bigger, one of the things I was always chasing was the big screen element that came with home theatre.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a projector. And unfortunately, the first projector I got was a 4x3 projector. So where I had the 16x9 TV,
traditional.
it went back down to a 4x3. And obviously watching it was anamorphic widescreen movies, they were squashed down with black bars at the top and the bottom. That was really interesting because you actually got a big screen sort of idea of a movie, but the actual image didn't really do it for me. It was almost
so the size sort of
when you're watching the widescreen movies on the 4x3, it just narrowed it down to the idea of that letterbox.
Okay.
And whereas I think I mentioned before, I was chasing that sort of idea of the feeling I got when I first saw the opening scene in Star Wars. And while I bought a projector thinking that was going to give me that same feeling, at the time the technology didn't allow it to go
actually
really big.
Yeah. So how wide would that screen have been?
I think, it was probably a couple of meters. It wasn't.
Yeah.
And of course, the quality of the image was really only standard definition.
Yeah. So this is the big 3-gun.
It was a big 3-gun
CRT projection.
Yeah, it was. And I had ended up having 2 of those in my lifetime. The first one was a very basic and standard definition, and the other one I was lucky to get hold of, which was a Sony 1292 projector, massive beast, and it could actually do about.
Like 100 or plus kilos. Or something.
It was up on the ceiling, and I had to get it professionally installed because it was about 100 kilos. I think it was about 98 kilos.
And 98 kilos.
So we had to suspend that from the ceiling, and of course, while that gave me the bigger screen, the problem was noise, because the Sony projector had something like 13 cooling fans in it. So you started up and it sounded like a hovercraft.
And was that in this room, right?
That was up here, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So it was about, I think, early 2000s you moved to this home.
This house, yeah.
And I think, what were one of the first things you did to the house when you moved?
This room.
Cool. And then you had, in the Sony, that big projector, was that the second projector in
That was the second one I had,
okay.
Yeah.
So that was looking for more resolution.
Yep.
And do you get much more light as well?
Yes, there was more light output from that. I can't actually remember how many lumens, but it was a bit brighter, and obviously being a 3-gun CRT. I mean, it was something I do like doing is dabbling as well in the technical side of it. So I would spend countless hours aligning the 3 guns.
Yeah, which was always very important.
So you spend more time doing that than watching movies probably. But it was something that progressed me to that higher resolution. But unfortunately, the downside to that was the noise level. So of course you had to have the amplifier turned quite loud, even in quieter parts of a movie, to try and combat the sound of the projector.
Okay, so look, staying on video for a bit, because this is kind of cool. So then from the big Sony, was that when we moved to what we've got now, right? The JVC.
JVC, yeah.
Cool.
Yep. So this one was. It was the first of the JVC line, which is the X7. So
the X series,
the X series. Now I know that there's been quite a few progressions, and I've just heard just recently that JVC have announced another line, which is
4K,
something I've been waiting for. So next edition.
Yeah.
But this projector, I must say, has been the fantastic. It's served me now for probably about 8 years, 7, 8 years. I think it's been something like that. Maybe.
Tough.
And it's had a couple of bulb changes, but that's about it. And I must say the light output and the clarity of the image, just awesome.
So this has sort of really got you into that you're like, this is what I was looking for. That Star Wars interesting.
Well,
or
there was one other thing that we did.
So it's
and that's when I met you.
Then we went to lens. Okay, tell me.
So the next thing was, while we had the projector, I still was chasing that feeling I had when the big ship came over in Star Wars. And what we did was went to anamorphic lens in front of the projector and a 2.35 to 1 ratio screen
So that's where you finally went from like a 2 meter wide screen to more like 3.5 meter wide screen.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
that changed.
And that was the moment. That was
Yeah.
probably the pivotal moment where we put on Star Wars and we set up to fill the whole 2.35 to 1 screen. And when the ship came over, I actually got that a little buzz, and it was that feeling that I had as a child, sitting there in the theatre watching this big ship come over, and the place just rumbling, and feeling like you were just sitting underneath it, and that, I must say, probably in the whole evolution of the theatre, was one of the pivotal moments that got me to where I wanted to be at the time.
And that would have been with Blu-ray disc as well,
Yep.
so proper HD picture. I know when we had our showroom, it's where we first met, we started running anamorphic screens with Blu-ray, started sorting our acoustics out in the room, and when people visit the showroom, they'll wander in and they'll just get lost in there.
Yep.
Whereas before we made those changes, people wander in, it was DVD, it was whatever, and they'll come out after 3-4 minutes and they'll go, oh yeah, we're looking at this and that. But yeah, when that all stacked up, suddenly people were like, are they still in there? And yeah, people was mesmerised. So yeah, I agree. I think there was that time where the picture, the HD picture and the scope screens really just got you in there.
I must say that because of the size of the screen to the size of the room, when you're watching it in proper anamorphic full scope, it does really bring you into the storyline. So it's creating your visual field is filling up quite
yeah,
well.
I reckon you would be, I haven't done the calculation, but I reckon you'd be around a 50-degree or so view, which is sort of like sitting in the middle of a real commercial size cinema room. And you know, the back of a cinema room's more like sort of 42, 45. The very front's more like 60, 90. So you're kind of like right in the middle of a cinema. And I know that's where most people enjoy sitting as well. So
I know,
yeah, you've knocked it out of the ballpark with that one.
I know when I go to the theatre, you get in there early, make sure you get the prime seating
Exactly,
position.
right, yeah.
Always in the middle, sort
If
of
you
not
can't
too
book
far
the
front, not too
seats,
far back.
Yeah.
So
awesome. That's great. So that's a pretty cool snapshot of video. We know the new 4K JVCs are right around the corner, so that's a other evolution. I'm going to do a little press release on that soon as well. And we'll come back and we'll chat about maybe the sound systems evolution as well.
Cool. Thanks.
Guys, welcome back. Scott here, joined by Gary. Again, thanks again. Yeah.
No problem.
So we're just touched on some of the video systems for some folks that are tuning in and kind of new to all this. We're nerding out a bit and we went on some of the tech features. So, we were talking about the anamorphic lens is a real critical part of the system. And what that is, for guys that don't know, it's where the picture is stretched super wide. So, when you go to the movies or traditionally, Coca-Cola ad finishes and the curtains will open out, and then the projections would actually put a lens in front, and then the movie was presented in the super widescreen. And it's actually about 80% of movies ever made and still made are actually in this really wide format. And it's for a good purpose. We see wider than we do up and down, and that's that immersion which you finally nailed. So traditionally a projector would be more TV shape, so with the addition of the lens actually opens up wide, which is really cool. Only problem with anamorphic lenses is having to buy anamorphic lenses.
True.
And the new projectors are doing some
some similar things as well.
Yeah. So
sort of one of the things was that when you watch a movie on a normal TV screen, you usually find they've got those black bars at the top and bottom.
It's the letterbox.
And that letterboxing is as if you're looking out of a letterbox. You see the slit of light, which is the image. And a lot of the older movies that are in the widescreen format, when you're on TV, and or if you're on a DVD or
Normal
Blu-ray,
size,
they
yeah.
will have these black bars
Yeah.
top and bottom. Well, that's wasted image
Yeah.
space, isn't it? Really, and
Yeah,
that was
it's
one of the things.
resolution.
Yeah, I wanted to get rid of that and just have the
So, yeah.
widescreen. So yeah,
Awesome. So the video's been some. I mean, you jumped into the widescreen CRT, the CRT projection really on. So yeah, you've been enjoying some amazing movies for a while, and I know that next step's going to be another big one. So, but of course, video's cool. But what about sound? So, what are the big game changers for you in the sound area over the years?
I suppose the idea is just your sound is evolving all the time, and when I started, it was Dolby Surround, which was it was they used an algorithm just to
Pro
Logic, yeah, where they had a stereo signal, and hidden in the signal was the surround sound, and that apparently is it's a passive process and not discrete sound coming from each speaker. And of course, then from that was Dolby
Digital. So, what was the first Dolby Digital amp you got? Let me guess, it's probably a Yamaha, because they were the big ones back then. Yeah.
It was interesting. My evolution for amplifiers was all in one, so processor and amplifier. And I started off with Yamahas and then went to Denons.
And that would have been when HDMI maybe kicked in, and that would have given you the HD sound through Blu-ray. So how was that jump going from Dolby Digital, which is technically a compressed audio sound, to the HD sound?
The uncompressed sound is just the clear as. I mean, you don't think you would notice a difference.
Yeah,
You sort of think, the sound is going to be pretty audible, and I think it's what you're used to as well. So every upgrade that I've done, I'm not one that chases the technology all the time, in the sense that as soon as a new amp comes out, I don't buy it.
Yeah,
I'm one of these people that if I'm going to buy new equipment, it has to make a difference, and every time I've done that, it's always been a bit of a leap. So going from just normal Dolby Digital, the compressed format, to the
HD, through HDMI. So that was a requirement from the Blu-ray standard that through HDMI they'll allow the studio soundtrack because it was more protected. Also, it could hold the resolution. And that would have went to 7.1, I guess, as well.
It did, and it was clear as. I mean, it was just awesome. Hearing very discrete sounds around you just started to fill up that sound space. And I suppose as that progressed, obviously now the latest format with Dolby Atmos, sort of, you think keep adding speakers, when does it stop? But I must say
you've added more.
added more. But I must say, as I said, it's not something I would choose to do lightly, and it would have to make a big difference for me to go ahead and do it. And I must say, every step of the way has been an improvement as we've gone through it.
This has been a big one because I know you had a few legacy speakers hanging around in the last year, and then as we've gone into because the big change this year is actually the room fit out. So the audio visuals change. You've been continuing to collect some of the collector's items, and then it was really about, well, hang on, let's put all of this together now. And that kind of made you rethink a little bit of the sound, because we could actually incorporate and integrate the sound system into the room this time. One of the things that I've never done, and that's acoustic treatments. And I must say they produce a lot of it's a lot of difference to the sound within the room. I had sort of probably carpet was the most acoustically treated place on the floor. The floor was, but other than that, there was pretty much nothing else in the room that helped dampen the sound down and stop reflections. But having this upgrade, I've got rid of a lot of those acoustic reflections, and the sound is being treated in I think a much more a dedicated way, something that I've never thought of before. So this upgrade that we've just done, it's been quite a large upgrade from a perspective of not only some new equipment but also some acoustic treatments within the room to actually make the sound clear and concise as it can be within this environment. It was definitely, this is a big sort of challenge for me as well, helping out in the 3D design process of making sure we got the new speakers integrated, the style right, the decor and the features were really highlighted and acoustically well managed. So there's sort of 4 kind of solutions we needed to find in one design, and it's definitely one of the more exciting jobs, and kept me up late a few times sort of working it out, and then we collaborated, and it took us a little while to really get there.
Yeah, I must say the development, I mean, you're probably wondering, is this guy going to go ahead with this? Because the development process was a long process to do this room as it is now.
I think we first started chatting almost a year ago about this stage. It was about October. Yeah.
Which one good thing about that, though, that allowed me to look at what equipment I needed to upgrade during that time, so that when the fit out did occur, I had the equipment that I needed to go in.
Because not only have we got the new front LCRs integrated into the room, we've got the Atmos speakers, we've kept the surround speakers, they're nice Dyn Audio bookshelves, so they're great around the room. But we've got a bigger sub, and you've moved to the pre and power, so we've got dedicated processor, and we've got, I think, a couple 100 watts. In fact, into most of these speakers, you're pulling about 300 watts per speaker around the room, so just as well we acoustically sorted the room out, because there's a lot of sound in here. And
it does make such a big difference, one, having the power to drive the speakers, but also too, that acoustic treatment is something that a lot of people probably don't think of, and I must say it does make a big difference. So
Awesome, great. Well, there's a wrap from a bit of the sound that's also evolved and certainly now kind of hidden actually into this space. But
and that was the other thing, was to hide the speakers, because obviously before I had big tower speakers that stood out, and the surround speakers were hanging off the walls and you could see them. So what I wanted was something that or not only did all the acoustic treatments, but also hid the speakers behind structures that they're not so obvious.
Yeah, keep them in the background and let the memorabilia and the features really, which has been done great. So we're going to chat to you about these some of these features as well, because they've certainly come along over a period of time as well, by the looks.
They have, they've. It's just something that I've been slowly collecting, and it's something that I try to go for pieces that make a statement rather than, obviously they're what I'm interested in, but
the sci-fi theme.
The sci-fi theme, but it's more about wanting something that's collectible, and something that shows a bit about my personality and the movies that I grew up on, and that made quite a big impact. So there's quite a variety, from Star Trek to Terminator to some of the old Jerry Anderson Thunderbirds and UFO and Alien, all those sort of things. They're just I suppose movies that made a big impact in my life as I sort of got into watching movies, and that sort of sci-fi side of it was just blew me away. So
great, awesome. Well, we'll have a look around the room and check out more of that in the next break. Hey guys, Scott Regan here, Rogue Home Cinema, invited in by Gary, mate. Thanks for having us here. It's been really great. I think once again, each time a new range of our team visit, in this case the media team, we need to do a check down on the way out to make sure no collectibles have snuck their way out of here. This is like, you almost need museum style security.
Yep.
So as much as you want a laser projector, you might need laser security.
Frisk people as they learn.
Yeah, that's it. So it's been great, and we've chatted about some of the history. I mean, you've come a long way. You're one of the early enthusiasts in audio visual. Starting in the sort of 80s through 90s when video started becoming a big deal for and even THX recognised that the home is going to be a major space to enjoy this. In '93, I think they created the THX program for home. And you've been there all along. So what are some of the milestones or the tips, someone starting out, what would you sort of say are important aspects of enjoying movies at home?
Probably one of the first things is have a dedicated room if you can afford to have a dedicated room. I think, I really do think.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
I've always had a dedicated room, and but the room prior to this now is a true home theatre room. It is just a home theatre room. Previous to this, the room, while it did hold a home theatre system, was more of a conversation room where we would have people round. We had a big lounge where people could just sit around and we just played a bit of music. It was a bit of an entertainment room in a way.
General fun.
But I must say that wherever I've set up the theatre room, it's always been one dedicated space for that. Now, there's nothing to say that you couldn't set up a home theatre in a room like a lounge room or whatever, but a dedicated space is something that...
Well, painting the living room ceiling black is sometimes a challenge.
I must say that...
you don't get a leave pass on that
No. That was one of the first things I did when we set up this room was to paint the ceiling a matte black. And I've got to say that was a hard decision to make because I've never had a black
it's different, right? I know a lot of people, they find it hard to get their head around, but then when they do it,
it makes the space. And one of the things I must say that when we did paint the ceiling black, it made the space a little bit more like a theatre as such. I mean, go to any commercial theatre, the ceiling's black. So
it's kind of logical when you think of it that way, but when it's in the house, it's just different.
And and it's not just a design statement. It's actually to try and stop reflections of light. So especially when you go for a projector. So
and they're getting brighter these days. The brighter the picture of the screen, the more the light in the room, well, the room will impact that. So now I love you brought that up. Dedicated room, which then gives you not just the advantage of doing acoustics and things that most lounge rooms don't get the advantage of doing, but just the decor itself is a major game changer. We talk about that a lot. And the thing is, you got to paint the room with something, so it actually costs no different to get this critical part right. So
I must say that going for the darker colours in a home theatre does make it feel much more like a true home theatre. So doing that, again, the other thing that we did with this makeover is we did have light walls, and so we've gone for a much darker colour on the walls
as well.
And we had a lighter carpet too. We've gone for a darker carpet. Cool. So everything has gone dark now. It's one of those things you sort of think, is it going to be overbearing and too much? I've got to say, the feeling within this room now is very much a home theatre room. So that dedication of a room to what you want it to do. And look, you can set it out how you like. I mean, it just comes down to being able to enjoy the movie
space.
I
see, a carport has a concrete floor and exposed brick, and it does its job for looking after the cars. Home theatre has its purpose, so you got to make that thing, work and function. So, and I know, we've got usually other people in the family to consider, and that's always a big thing. So, your partner, now that the room's been done, how's that been accepted?
Awesome. Awesome. I mean, that's one of the things I was always worried about in the back of my mind, because obviously you and I met and we were discussing how we want the room to be. I would always come home and talk to my partner about the ideas that we had and the concepts that we were going through. And must say my partner was very supportive of all the changes, but it wasn't until it's finished when they could actually see the vision and they're going, yes, that's fine. It is awesome, because I think that's one of the things is always keeping your partner involved in the process is really important if you're going to go ahead with something like this, because it's
probably
it's room for the family. It's not just your room. It's room for everyone.
I've noticed as well, we had a new prospect sort of kind of interested, and they happened to live not far from a project we just finished, and they were really happy to show off the room. And the moment they walked in and saw the space, they're like, oh, I get it now. So if you had the chance to both go along and see a room like this, that would have probably helped, I guess, a lot as well.
Yeah. I must say that I suppose one of the things that reassured me that this process was going to work was I think when we first came to pick up some equipment from your place, we saw that your home theatre room, prior to being completed, and then seeing it completed, it was just a chalk and cheese.
Yeah,
it was just completely different. But you could see the vision. You could see how it could turn out.
It's hard to know that you want something until you have a taste, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we've built the new demo room here in WA now, and I must say that's been really helpful for a lot of our clients or potential clients to sort of go, I get it, and obviously I want it, and for partners as well to sort of go, this black ceiling thing isn't such a crazy idea. In fact, this room's really calming. We get that a lot, and it's really exciting, and of course it's really engaging. So it's a shame that often people don't get it until it's done, which makes it really, it's kind of the wrong way.
It's a hard call, because you are planning something and you're not sure exactly how it's going to look, and I suppose putting the faith in, if you're getting someone like yourself to design it, putting faith in the people that are doing it, knowing they've done it before, they know what they're doing, and I think that's probably something else I was thinking of, was actually having somebody dedicated to help you design, and how much you have them involved in the design is I suppose you can get them just to give you some ideas, or having someone to do a complete fit out, whatever takes your fancy. But I think it's important that you employ someone to give you some ideas.
All right, guys. So we're good at we love this. We have to chat more anyway off here. So dedicated room, big game changer. Dark ceiling or dark room, another big tip. Some other tips for people that maybe first time checking this out. With your experience, what do you say?
Go for what you can afford. Okay, so try and have some surround speakers. So surround sound gives you that element of being involved with whatever you're watching.
Definitely.
Go as bigger picture as you can. These days, obviously, with the LCD, OLED screens, they can be quite large. But if you really want a true cinema experience, and I found it out by slowly progressing through different technologies, projectors is the way to go.
So surround sound. Projection, I agree. I mean, we only really do. I wouldn't even know what the new TV is. It's all about projection. To get that, like you say,
get the big
Star
screen.
Wars original.
To get the big screen.
And any other ones which I guess might come off the top of your head.
I think, as I mentioned before, is getting some help with design if you want to take that step into developing a single room. Okay. That's really important to get some ideas about how to progress to change the room into a theatre room. I mean, when we bought this house, this room was I think it had the original owners had a pool table in it. It was just a pool
they were,
So just getting different ideas and probably one of the other things that I've noticed since we've done the makeover of this is that acoustic treatments, having something acoustically on the walls or the floor, not having hard tiles and things like that. All those sort of things can help in enhancing the experience that you have while you're watching movies.
No, I agree.
And I think if you watch movies, whether it's like we have the grandkids around and we watch the sort of
the emoji movie and stuff.
Frozen and all those sort of things. The kids love it. They just love sitting here just watching it and having the popcorn and Jaffers.
Everyone gets a laugh out of them, right?
Yeah.
It's great,
or whether you're sitting here just getting engrossed into a movie that you love. I mean, I think it's making it the space you want to make it. And I think by incorporating some important design features that make it to be a theatre room, but also incorporate things that you want in the room, and that
personalisation.
And that's sort of when we came to discuss. I have all this memorabilia that I want to show off. I don't want it in a cupboard. I don't want it locked away. I want it to be part of the room. And so I think one of the challenges we had was developing spaces to be able to show this material in the best possible way.
In and around it all. And it's like a museum. Like, it's beautiful. It really is. I love it. You've done well. I wasn't sure you were going to put everything, and it's all come up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things were put in one place, they're moved, put in another. But I mean, it just takes time. We dedicated enough space to be able to place things where we wanted them, and it was a matter of finding the right space for the right piece. So
brilliant.
That's good.
Yeah, guys, so thanks for watching Gary's Sci-Fi Cinema on featured today. So thank you, Gary, for having us here and getting us involved. Check out more at Rogue Home Cinema. You'll find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. And we'll keep you posted with more exciting home cinema spaces and places and people.